Thanks for joining us here on World Tech Update. I'm Nick Barber. Coming up on this week's show, Sony enters the tablet market. We'll give you an update on cleanup efforts in Japan following the deadly earthquake and tsunami, and tell you how your phone could be spying on you. We'll start this week with a lot of Sony news. First up, the company will make its long-awaited entry into the tablet PC market with two Android-based devices which will be out worldwide this fall. The S1, the larger of the two tablets, has a 9.4-inch screen and is shaped like a wedge, which Sony says makes it easier to hold. The S2 is a folding device with dual 5.5-inch screens. Both devices will run Android 3.0 or Honeycomb and are based on NVIDIA's Tegra 2 processor and have front and rear cameras. Sony's built an infrared transmitter into the S1 so it can be used to control gadgets around the house, such as a television or Blu-ray disc player. On the S2, the dual screens can be used for gaming, and it's also PlayStation certified. An exact launch schedule hasn't been announced, but we'll keep you posted. Gamers are noticing a big problem with the PlayStation Network this week. It's been down for days, and up to 75 million users' personal information, including possibly credit cards, may have been compromised. Sony's hired a security firm to conduct a full and complete investigation of what appears to be an external intrusion. Sony is urging customers to be on the lookout for suspicious email, telephone, and postal scams, saying that Sony would never contact customers asking for credit card numbers, social security numbers, or other identity information. It also recommends that once the service comes back online in about a week, that users change their logins and passwords, which were also stolen. In more gaming news, Nintendo's announced that it's planning a follow-up for its popular Wii game console. Codenamed Project Cafe, it will launch in 2012, but will be shown in playable form for the first time at the E3 Game Conference in June. We'll be there, so you want to stay tuned for that. If you're carrying an iPhone or an Android device like me, then there's a chance it knows where you've been, even if you've turned off location-based services. Apple has come under fire in recent weeks after researchers showed that the iPhone and iPad store location data about users on the devices. Additional research found that both Apple and Google collect location information about users, even when applications that require location information aren't running. Google has defended itself by saying that location sharing by users of Android-based mobile phones is opt-in, and that all location data the company stores is anonymous. Apple responded on Wednesday to explain what's going on. The iPhone is not logging your location, rather it's maintaining a database of Wi-Fi hotspots and cell towers around your current location, some of which may be located more than 100 miles away from your iPhone, to help your iPhone more rapidly and accurately calculate its location when requested. These calculations are performed live on the iPhone using a crowdsourced database of Wi-Fi hotspot and cell tower data that is generated by tens of millions of iPhones, sending the geotagged locations of nearby Wi-Fi hotspots and cell towers in an anonymous and encrypted form to Apple. Microsoft also explained its data collection practices and said that it collects location information only if users allow an application to access location data and when that particular application requests location information. It also said that it keeps that data in a Microsoft database. Let's now head over to Martin Williams in Japan for the latest on the earthquake cleanup and the progress that's been made there. Martin?
Thanks, Nick, and welcome to Japan. This week we're coming to you from Ibaraki Prefecture. We're a couple of hours north of Tokyo, and we're at the Naka factory of Renesas. Now, Renesas, one of the largest chip makers for the auto industry. Around 40% of microcomputers in cars come from this company, and a lot of them from this factory. The factory was in an area that was heavily shaken by the earthquake. It's been offline ever since, and the company is racing to get things back on track. While Renesas might not be a household name, it is an important supplier of microcontrollers that end up in a wide variety of consumer electronics products and cars. The problems at this factory have directly affected gadget and car production worldwide. The factory didn't sustain any major structural damage, but the violent shaking during the quake was strong enough to move heavy chip-making machinery that had been bolted to the floor. Chip manufacturing is a very delicate process, and there's little room for error. So the resulting misalignment of machinery meant an instant halt to operations. Several thousand staff have been working around the clock to restore the plant, and in the last week, test production has begun on 2 chip production lines here, including this one that makes many chips for the auto industry. Commercial production is due to start in mid-June, but when it does, it will initially be at about 10% of pre-quake capacity. Renesas hasn't said when full production will begin. Of course, one of the reasons that it is important to get this factory back online is because these car makers around the world are waiting for these small chips. Without them, even a single chip, sometimes they can't produce an entire car, so the knock-on effect has been quite large. Also this week, Sony said that its tsunami-hit Sendai Technology Center will resume production of blank Blu-ray discs in late May. Production of magnetic tape is due to begin in July. So that's the news from here. The other thing we got a chance to look at this week was these robots that have been used underwater in the search for debris and victims up in the disaster zone. The robots were brought by a team from the Center for Robot Assisted Search and Rescue, which is based at Texas A&M University. In Rikuzen, Takata, one of the hardest hit towns, a Sarbot was used to search for victims. It was used in areas where it's too dangerous to send divers because of the risk they could get caught up in debris. This video is from under the floating roof of a house. The robot can look up and see what's stuck under the dangerous wooden structure. And here the robot is checking out a submerged car. They also used a Seymour robot with sonar to check the seabed and make sure there was no large debris that would endanger ships. To the team's surprise, they didn't find much underwater. During their 5-day mission, they also found no victims. All right, I think that team has gone home now, but there are some Japanese robots getting ready to take over and resume the search, and we're going to tell you about those next week. But for now, that's it from Japan. Nick, back to you in Boston.
Thanks, Martin. We're looking forward to your report next week. The Nook Color, the tablet e-reader from Barnes & Noble, got a major update with an upgrade to Android 2.2, which includes a flash video player and access to a new app store. The company also announced a Nook developer program for building Nook apps. The 7-inch Wi-Fi tablet costs $250, which is about half the price of Apple's iPad, but the Nook has a ways to come before it can really compete. For example, the iPad has access to 65,000 apps, whereas the Nook only 125. Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us here on World Tech Update. As we head out, we'll leave you with some shots of Anime Boston that was in town last week. I'm Nick Barber, and for all of us here at the IDG News Service, thanks for watching. We hope to see you next week.